This is the best of the week on Relevant Radio.
Here is an email from Joseph, and he says, I'm a backslidden Catholic. What does he mean by that, you may say? Well, the Bible uses a term in the King James Version, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure it's King James, about backsliding. What is backsliding? Backsliding would be if you are in, let's say, you've escaped from a sin. You don't do it anymore. That's good. And then you fall back into the sin. And you wind up back where you once started. That's a way of talking about backsliding. You did pretty well. You kind of clawed your way up by God's grace to a place where you're not doing the sin, and then you backslide. So that's what he's talking about. So I'm a backslidden Catholic. My wife is Protestant. Her non-denominational father is a minister who performed our wedding ceremony for us because he was ordained online. I'm ready to go back to the Catholic faith, but I can't convince my wife to go to the Catholic Church. I don't know the faith well enough to refute all the Protestant arguments, such as once saved, always saved, or her deconstructionist attitude that we don't need to do all the extra stuff the Catholic Church has. We just need Jesus and the Bible. Point me in the direction of apologetics books that will bring me to a better knowledge of my faith to answer her questions and arguments. And he says, also, since I was married outside the Catholic faith in a Protestant ceremony, can I receive the Eucharist after I go to confession? Well, let's come to that in a second. So first of all, Joseph, I'm happy to hear that your conscience is stirring you and you're hearing those prompts from the Lord to come back to the Catholic Church. That's good. And I just want to encourage you to stay the course, keep going, get on the journey and keep going. And in due time, God willing, your wife will follow you. We'll see what happens there. But as for you, you need to do the right thing. And along the way, you'll be able to evangelize your wife a little bit better. So to take the questions in order, I think part of your question is your marriage valid? Let's assume for a minute that there was no prior marriage for either one of you, and you both got married, but you didn't get married in the Catholic Church, which as a Catholic you're required to do. In the Catholic Church, in the presence of a Catholic bishop, priest, or deacon who solemnizes the marriage, meaning that he witnesses the marriage officially in the eyes of the church or in the, kind of as a representative of the church, and he blesses the marriage. Those are required in order for you to be married validly. As a Catholic, you have to do that. So assuming that those things were not done, the church would say that your marriage is invalid. It can be convalidated. Colloquially, people will say, get your marriage blessed. So that is something that can be done. And it doesn't require your wife to become Catholic in order for that to take place. But you're going to need to talk with the parish priest about that, and he can help you in terms of initiating the paperwork so that the church can declare this. And it may even be possible without that, where you can just have your marriage solemnized, have your marriage blessed, as they say colloquially. So that can be done. And we hope that your wife will follow you into the Catholic Church and just pray, and be a good husband and evangelize her as best you can. So what about the question about books and things? All right, well, one thing I would recommend is encourage your wife to listen to Relevant Radio with you. This program, this is just one of a number of programs we have every day where you can hear the answers to her kinds of questions. So once saved, always saved, clearly not a biblical doctrine. The Bible is really clear that you can lose your salvation. If you go to the show page, relevantradio.com, you can look at, or listen to rather, snippets from the show in the past where I talk about things like that. And you can zero in on some of those topics. We also have a YouTube page. So if you go to YouTube and look up The Patrick Madrid Show, there's probably well over 100 by now clips from the show in which I talk about things all over the board, but I think that may be one of them. Talk about Mary, talk about the Mass, etc. So those are things that you could listen to. And if you can get your wife to start listening to the program, I think you've got a fighting chance to move her in the right direction by God's grace. I've written a number of books. What I would suggest to you would be to go to the show page if you're looking for good books. Go to relevantradio.com/Patrick, relevantradio.com/Patrick. Click on links, And when you go there, you will see my website, you'll see articles. Those are all free, by the way. But if you go there, you can see all the books. And I've written, what's it been now? I think maybe 27, I think. But on all the different topics that you're thinking about. So once saved, always saved. I've got books on that. What about the papacy? What about Mary? What about the Mass? And so on. So these are all available to you, and you can check them out there. Lastly, I would recommend a series of booklets by Jim Burnham, Burnham, co-authored with Father Frank Chacon, Chacon, and they're called Beginning Apologetics. These are like workbooks, maybe 30 pages long, the size of a workbook, 8.5 by 11. And each one of them is on a specific topic. So there's a Beginning Apologetics book on the Eucharist. So all the standard arguments against the Eucharist and all of the Bible verses and all the historical evidence that demonstrates the truth of the Catholic teaching. There's one on the sacraments. There's one on Mary. There's one on the divinity of Jesus. There's one on the Mass. There's one on purgatory. There's one on the papacy. It's a very comprehensive set. You can get the whole set and leave them around the house. Your wife may thumb through them and start getting answers for herself. But as for you, it would be good for you to assimilate this biblical knowledge so that you'll be in a position to share it with her. And then lastly, I would recommend a book that I edited. It's called Surprised by Truth. And it is the conversion testimonies of 11 people telling why they became Catholic. They were like she was, or like she is now. Yeah, we don't need all that stuff. It's just Jesus and the Bible, and that's it. Well, of course, the Bible doesn't say that. But in this book, Surprised by Truth, each of these men and women who wound up becoming Catholic tell their story, and they share their own obstacles and their own disagreements and their own objections to the Catholic Church. And that particular book has been, I don't know what other way to put it, but miraculous, countless conversions from those testimonies. So I don't take credit for those testimonies. It's the people who wrote them, but they're all together in that one book. So I would give her that as well. Surprised by Truth. Like what you just heard? Share it with your family and friends. And thanks for listening.